Good morning. I wanted to jump on here real quick and read chapter 12. It's actually Thursday night and the boys are sleeping, so I'm not going to be too terribly loud. But I wanted to get this read and uploaded so that you guys could hear chapter 12 tomorrow. I guess you probably saw I uploaded chapter 11 Thursday afternoonish. So there was 2 chapters uploaded Thursday. I'd like to finish this book by next Friday because Miss Freeze is going to read one that she's picked out starting the next week. So chapter 12 of The Secret School. Though Ida still hadn't figured out how to be the teacher, student, family member, and herself all at the same time, she found herself truly enjoying teaching. Each time she drove to school, she looked forward to what new things would happen. As the days passed, she worked with or listened to each student separately, though there were times she worked simultaneously with 2 or 3. When she wasn't spending time with them, the children were either learning lessons by themselves, memorizing, working with each other, studying together if they were on the same level, or helping one another if they were not. When they became tired or bored, which happened, they sat quietly, staring out the windows, at the mountains, and daydreaming. Sometimes they did little but listened to the other lessons that buzzed endlessly around them. Of course, there were arguments, spats, even mean words, some of which brought tears. Once, Herbert and Charlie even got into a fight. Everything took sorting out. Then there were school chores, sweeping, mopping, cutting and hauling wood, dusting, taking out the ashes, polishing desks, filling the stove, cleaning the privates, remember that's a bathroom, washing the windows. Everybody did some of everything. But with every passing day, Ida felt more confident that things were truly going well. The children seemed to be working hard. She herself was not quite as exhausted as she had been. Even Herbert was in school more often than not. Maybe, after all, her visit had helped. One afternoon, as they were driving home, Flex said, "Ida, guess what Tom was talking about." "What?" "That final exam you have to take." "What did he say?" "He says he's going to pass it easy." Gritting her teeth, Ida said, "Oh, hold on, I think I skipped a page." Oh, no, she didn't. Okay. Gritting her teeth, Ida said, "I hate that Tom Cole," and immediately resolved to concentrate wholly on her own studies. But as soon as she arrived home, she was greeted by her father saying, "Ida, I need you in the barn." It was lambing season, an exciting, unsettled time. Newborns had a schedule of their all on their own. It was quite late when Ida finally crawled into her own bed. She, working with her mother and father, had helped deliver 12 lambs. She laid down, only to realize she had done absolutely no schoolwork that night, neither for her students or herself. She sat bolted right up. She must do something. Then Flex across the room gave a deep sigh in his sleep. He sounded so content, so utterly at rest, that Ida could do nothing but give way to her own tiredness. Full of the pleasing sensation of willful doing nothing, of being aware of nothing but her own body, she snuggled beneath her blanket. It seemed the sweetest thing to do in the whole world. In moments, she was asleep. Exactly 2 weeks after the day that Miss Sagewick had appeared. Remember, she's the lady from the county that came to check on them all. The weather turned springtime. Glorious. The air was balmy, with fluffy clouds floating through the arching blue sky. The mountains themselves, with their consistency retreating snow caps, seemed to be soaring. Tom announced he'd seen a bald eagle on the way to school, and Charlie Charlie countered by insisting he'd seen hummingbirds, the season's first. Early flowers, brilliant yellow snow lilies, dotted the valley, signaling spring's late arrival and the promise of summer, a wonderful summer. No one, including Ida, wanted to be inside. Still, she told herself, they had to be. All that morning, Ida kept stealing glances out the open window. Once, when she noticed that Ruckus was gate grazing, she even caught herself wishing she could be a mule for the day. 4 times she quietly opened her desk drawer, pulled out the sheepskin, and checked the clock. She wasn't tired. She was restless. The room, despite the open windows, seemed small and stuffy. When Ida caught sight of the mule deer coming down the road and then trotting off into the woods, she gave up. She had to get out, too. And suddenly she said, I wish to make an announcement. The fidgeting children gave her their attention. It's recess time. I've decided that I need recess, too. From now on, I shall go outside and play when you do. When I do, I shall be Ida. But when recess is over, I will be Miss Bison, your teacher again. May we all agree on that? All in favor, raise your hands. So again, she's voting. Ida's gonna be a human again? Herbert shouted as he stretched both hands up high. All the other hands shot up too, and there was a dash for the door. Once outside, Ida didn't stop. Gathering her skirt in her hands, she ran as hard as she could, away from everyone, toward the eastern hills, as if determined to reach the top of the mountain. It felt so good to run again. Then she flopped down in the tall grass and spread out her arms and legs like a windmill and gazed up at the sky. The sun was warm. The breeze in her face was fresh and clean. High above her, a hawk began to circle. Ida giggled. Maybe he thinks I'm a mouse, she thought. Suddenly, consumed with the desire to play, she ran back to the schoolyard. As soon as Tom saw Ida coming, he huddled with Herbert and then called out, Crack the whip! Crack the whip! Everybody tore down behind the privates to the flat area near the pond. Once there, they all joined in hands, urging Ida to be at the end. Completely giddy to be romping again, she agreed. Romping is running and playing. It was Herbert who grasped her hand securely, and Tom, being the tallest, naturally took the lead. He led them around and around in tighter and tighter circles until Ida had a hard time staying on her feet. She didn't care. She was so happy to be part of the group again. Tom led on, faster and faster, until as he made the final cracking twist, he shouted, Let her go! With that, Herbert let Ida's hand slip. The boys had it all perfectly planned and timed. Ida went flying through the air until she landed with a great splash right in the middle of a pond. That's why her dress is so muddy on the front. Soaked and mud splattered, she sat in the water. For a moment, she just remained there, gasping for breath and shock. The next moment, she broke out into laughter, laughing as she had not laughed in a long time. As the other children joined in, she could not stop. Suddenly, they heard a voice. My dear, Miss Bison, are you giving swimming lessons? Oh, who do you think it is? They looked around. It was the county examiner, Miss Sedgwick. She seemed to be struggling not to laugh herself. I have visited many schools, she said, but never one quite like this. Now, I'm afraid I really do need to speak to, well, all of you. Dripping wet, red-faced and mud-streaked, Ida waded out of the pond and plodded in towards the schoolhouse. The other children followed uncertainly. Tom edged up to Ida. Sorry, he whispered. She looked up at him. He looked particularly guilty for that for a moment she felt almost an irresistible giggle rise. Do I look a sight? He hesitated for a moment and then said, Yes, and started to laugh again, but tried to repress it. Ida bit her lip to keep herself from laughing more. As the students filed into their places, Ida stood shivering beside the teacher's desk. This was, she knew, a very serious moment. Why was she so desperate to laugh? "My dear," said Miss Sedgwick, "have you no dry clothes?" "No, ma'am. Can I explain what we were? Miss Bison, you are the teacher here. Do take your place." Wet through she was. Ida sat down. Under the cover of her desk, she slipped off her shoes. She was aware that if she so much as peeked at Tom, she would burst out in laughing again. "I'm sorry to have come at such an awkward moment," Miss Sedgwick began, addressing Ida, as well as the class. "I should begin by commending you for all of your desire to be in school. As far as I'm concerned, there's no harm in you studying together. In fact, I admire it greatly. If you wish to allow Miss Bison to be your unofficial teacher, there's nothing wrong with that either." The other children bursted into applaud. Ida lowered herself and gave herself a big smile. The desire to laugh eased. "However," Miss Sedgwick said with a new severity, "as for getting credit for what you are doing, that's quite another matter. Credit for the term will be requiring a passing grade on the exam given by the county." Tom raised his hand. "For the 8th graders? Is that what you mean, ma'am?" "For the 8th graders, certainly. But here's the choice I offer. I'll keep your secret, but in return you all must take a final exam." "All?" Ida said, now very serious. "All," Miss Sedgwick repeated. "Me too?" said Mary. "You too, my dear." "I thought tests were just supposed to be for Tom and Ida," Herbert objected. "Young man, you have changed the rules here," Miss Sedgwick replied. "Now I have to. You can't get credit for taking a full term unless we see that you've truly mastered it." "Miss Sedgwick," asked Ida, can I see the exam so I can make sure that I know what to teach?" "But then the results would only tell us what you taught your students, Miss Bison, not what they know." "No, my dear, just continue as you've been doing. The test will allow me to see what you've accomplished. Agree?" No one spoke. "Is that a yes or a no?" asked Miss Sedgwick. "We've been doing everything by voting," Ida said. "Then please feel free to vote," Miss Sedgwick urged. Ida stood up. "Those in favor of everybody taking exams like Miss Sedgwick says, please raise your hand." All hands, except Herbert's, went up. "I'm afraid," Miss Sedgwick said, "this won't work unless everyone agrees." She turned to Herbert. "Young man, would you reconsider?" If I take an exam, I'm just going to fail it." "Herbert, please," Ida pleaded. Herbert stared down at his desk. Once more, Ida said, "Those in favor." This time, all the hands, including Herbert's, rose. "Good," said Miss Sedgwick. "Then I shall be here bright and early on the morning of June the 7th. They go to school all the way till June. "To conduct the examinations. I presume for you too, Miss Bison?" "Yes, ma'am." "So if you please, just give me each student's name and grade level." Ida found a piece of paper, and while the class looked on in silence, she provided the information. Miss Sedgwick took the paper and folded it up and placed it in her purse. "I wish each and every one of you good luck," she said, and started for the door. Reaching it, she paused. "Oh, 2 more things," she said. "I urge you to inform your parents and the school board about what you're doing. And Miss Bison, do get dry clothes before you catch your death of cold." The children waited until they heard the sound of the car driving away. "I suppose," I said, "we'll just have to work harder." "And there's one more thing," Herbert called out. "What's that?" "No more swimming." It's funny. When Ida and Flex got home that afternoon, Ida went right into the kitchen. Her mother was at the big plank table, kneading her weekly bread. "Ida," she called, "what happened to you?" We had some fun at school today," Ida said ruefully. Miss Bison gave her daughter a look. "Ida, are you teaching or playing games down there?" "I'm teaching, Ma," Ida said. Then she told her everything that had happened, including the unfortunate visit by Miss Sedgwick. Now the whole school has to take exams, Ida said. I've ruined everything. If you had, her mother said, that woman would have said so. And the whole time I've been teaching, Ida said, it was only fooling I've done. Anyway, it was fun. She pouted. The most fun I've had in a long time. Ida, a teacher will always be held up as an example to her students. That's not fair, Ida burst out. I'm a person, too. I should study electricity like Tom, or play with a printing press. No one thinks he's bad when he's fooling around. Speaking of bad, I'm afraid I have more unfortunate news, said her mother. I met Herbert's pa when your father and I were at the feed store today. He complained to me that Herbert is wasting his time going to school. Said he wants to go to the school board and complain that you're keeping the school open. He didn't? Well, perhaps he was just talking big. Ma, you know what I think? I think Mr. Bixler doesn't want Herbert to come to school at all. I'm just telling you what he said. Or maybe Mr. Bixler's mad at me because I went down to his place, Ida confessed. You did? Why? Ma, it's what the teachers do. Herbert hadn't been in school. I'm supposed to find out why. You know what Mr. Bixler said? He said Herbert's schooling doesn't even matter. Honey, Mr. Bixler's wife died when Herbert was still a baby. Mr. Bixler's had bad luck on his farm. Lost a whole lot of sheep because of disease. Folks say his debt is piling up. He's not a happy man. Unhappy folks do unhappy things. Do you think Mr. Jordan already knows what we're doing? Ida, in this valley, sooner or later, everybody knows everything about everybody. You could tell him yourself, you know. He'd only say no. A frowning Ida sat down before the kitchen table. Is there something else? Her mother asked. Ida said nothing. Is it Tom? Ida shook her head. Can't be any worse than what you've already told me, can't it? Her mother coaxed. Ma, I've been working so hard at teaching, I've been letting my own studies go. Why, I'm going to be the only one that fails their exam. Well, Miss Bison, however you decide to head off that problem, I suggest you start by getting into some clean clothes. The end. See you tomorrow.